Yes, actually, I did. I made a point of that to find him whenever he was nearby. He came to Los Angeles several times in the 1980s, and I simply heard him speak a couple of times. He spoke at a church, and I was very impressed with him because he had no notes, he had no script, but he could speak so beautifully, eloquently on any subject. And we met in a church, and he would point around to symbols in the decorations of the church,
Hmm.
and he would say, okay, you see there's some grapes over there. That represents the wine and that represents the Blessed Sacrament and so forth. But he said it's also the sign of the god Dionysus. So he would move to the mythological things, or he would do something like take coins out of his pocket and say, you see this little symbol on the coin? And
Yeah.
then he'd tell you the whole story about
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
there's a certain eagle or a pyramid or something on an American coin. So he was just connected to everything. So I heard him speak, and I, brought a book for him to sign. So I, shook his hand. Big thing to me. But then I was meant to go and hear him speak over a weekend and be with him for some time, which I wanted to do, of course. But I got to the venue, and there was a sign up, a sign that said he's turned ill and he can't come. And there was a man standing next to me
Yeah.
in the same situation. And I said, oh, you wanted to see Mr. Campbell? That's very interesting. And I told what I did and who I was. And he said, oh, I'm George Miller, the director of Mad Max.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was there to hear Campbell speak also.
Yeah.
So we had a very nice discussion. And he said something funny to me. He said he didn't know anything about Campbell when he made the first Mad Max movie, but it was clear when he did encounter Campbell's ideas, there it was. And he had been unconsciously following this
Yes.
script. And then he was aware of it on the second Mad Max movie. And then he said on the third Max movie, he put it out of his mind, but it was there. It was still present. And he said, I really believe in this hero's journey idea of Campbell, but I don't use it to tell Mel Gibson how to drive the truck.
Uh-huh.
It's not that specific. It's something to have in the
Yeah.
back of your mind or in your body someplace, rather than have it right in the front of your head all the time. You don't want to do that. So then there was one final moment with Campbell just before he died. He came to speak in Los Angeles, and I went up to him and told him what I was doing
Yeah.
to take his ideas and put them into the language of
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
And he shook my hand very strong, and he said, you go with this young man, this will take you a long way. So I felt I had received, the blessing of the patriarch, and really felt quite good about that. So
Yeah.
that was my experience of Mr. Campbell. Well, I welcome that connection, because I did meet Sid Field. I saw him first many years ago when I was working at Disney in the animation department. And he came to speak to the animators and explain this really new idea at that time, that there is a sort of a pattern of 3 acts, and that there are turning points and movements almost like in a symphony. And this was new thinking. So I recognized this was something useful that connected beautifully with Campbell's ideas of the hero's journey. They were really the same
Yes.
design.
Yeah.
And they just matched and complemented each other beautifully. So the difference was that he sort of drew it as a straight line, and Campbell drew it as a circle.
Yes.
And they both have their values. They're both accurate in some ways, but it was just that was the only real big difference was how you drew a picture of it. And then later, I got the chance to work with Sid Field in giving presentations and appearing to tell our theories. And I got to know him as a man, and that man was so kind and spiritual. You know, he had a very serious Buddhist practice, and you just knew when you were in his presence that this was a man who had worked on himself and was in a very, very good place spiritually, and had the attitude, let's give what we know to everyone. And this was really revolutionary within the film industry, because in the past, people wanted to hold the information for themselves. Yeah. And they didn't want the public or students to know all these sort of secrets of the industry. But Sid had this other attitude, and I do, Campbell did. No, this is for everyone. Let's tell people about this and then let them use it. So that's what I know of Sid Field. I respect him very much. So that it was important thing for me to know him.
Yeah, you both are from Los Angeles, or more or less.
Well, yeah, I don't know where he grew up. Myself, I grew up in the Midwest, in St. Louis, in the middle of the country. But when I was in my early 20s, I was in the military, in the Air Force, and they sent me to Los Angeles to make movies there about the space program and the satellites they were launching, that sort of thing. So that's how I got to Los Angeles. And then I stayed to go to film school at University of Southern California. And that's where I encountered the ideas of Mr. Campbell and got my start in the business. Yes, this is sort of something that weighs on me. You know, it's a heavy thing for me because I am to some extent responsible for showing people a certain pattern that now has been taken up and used and become part of the mainstream of entertainment. And in some ways, I'm not responsible because it was already there. And, you know, it's something that's eternal, that's always been with us. So it's not really something new, but there was the danger from the very beginning. And Sid Field knew this too, that it's a bit dangerous because people like easy answers. They like simple solutions. And sometimes they stop in their thinking when they have a simple outline. And they are happy, you know, to say, okay, now I know how it works. And if we just put something here and something here and something here, then we'll have a good story. And that's somewhat true. But this misses out on a whole creative area that I think the proper use of these things is to present the audience with things that they're used to, things that they expect, but then always try to surprise them with something they didn't expect, with something that's out of the pattern. I feel, and I think from what I've read of your questions, I think you have this feeling too, that it's a great thing if you can know the patterns, these ancient ways of communicating with an audience, this ancient method of connecting the audience to the characters so that they care. But at the same time, you want to be always breaking some of these rules. And that's something that I have come to believe is that it's an obligation of the artist
Okay.
to know the rules or the patterns, but to break them somehow in every work, to do something that defies the audience's expectation or surprises them somehow. So this is what can keep the stories fresh. And I think that the big industry that makes the big Marvel and other superhero stories and all these things, they have to play a game between being fresh and being safe, because there's so much money invested that it sometimes allows them to be a little bit lazy about just, well, let's do another one, just like the other one. And we'll change the characters a little bit, or we'll make somebody have a little personal problem. They're, worried about their daughter, or worried about their father, or worried about their lover. But really, it's the same story. So they have reasons that they like to play it safe. But I think the whole thing is ready for an explosion, for a revolution. And it's going to be very interesting to see when someone comes along who knows how to disrupt all of these patterns and to use them and sort of invite the audience. Oh, see, this is what you know. Here's something familiar. Here's something friendly to you. And then, boom, hit them with a reversal or subversion of the patterns that will have the audience then really more engaged, more involved, thinking and reacting in a different way, rather than just, oh yeah, I've seen that before. Oh yeah, that's the same thing again. I know what's going to happen. Instead, you want them in this place like children, like, wow, I never saw that before. What is that? Oh, that's surprising. So this is what we want from our entertainment. So I think we're right on the edge of maybe a big revolution. I hope so. Yeah, the problem with giving particular advice is that that way of breaking the pattern then becomes another pattern. And everybody starts doing the surprise or the unexpected thing. I just think that this is my observation based on watching a lot of films and especially now a lot of streaming shows that run for a long time, and they have a lot of room to experiment. And I'm thinking about shows like Breaking Bad and Barry and Better Call Saul, shows like this that really do wake you up because they sort of have it as their mantra, as their motto. Don't do the expected thing. You can create the conditions, but for the audience to say, oh, I know what's going to happen. He'll probably rescue the girl, or he'll probably ask for forgiveness, or he'll probably make some mistake, but then he'll be sorry about it. They take apart those assumptions and say, we don't accept that, and we have to find another way that surprises the audience, and yet it still makes sense. It's still true to the essence of the characters. So this isn't easy, but I think that's the trick, is to just have that intention to avoid the obvious expected result and try to find some new way to do it. That's all. Yeah, I wish I could be more specific about it, but it's kind of a case by case thing.
Yes.
Where you come to turning points and you come to cliches, really, and I think that's the main thing you try to do is to say to yourself, I'm not going to do the cliche. I'm not going to do the expected thing. And that requires what all the cliches are.
Yeah.
You have to, really kind of study what has gone before, and then hope you can find the surprising way out of it. I noticed this first watching The Sopranos long ago. When that first came out, they would create situations, and as a student of the forms, I would say, okay, in this situation, there are only 4 things that can happen. He can run, he can kill somebody, he can lie, he can try to forget about it, and I'd watch, and then they would do something else that I wasn't expecting, and that was so wonderful. So it sort of fed my creative soul. It gave me hope that you don't have to fall into the cliches. You can always find some surprising way to sort of solve the equation. There is a kind of mathematics about the storytelling. This decision leads to this action, which equals this outcome. But it's that equal sign that is where you want to make the new thing. So you take this kind of, somebody wants to kill someone, someone is trying to stop them, and then you think, well, that they're going to be stopped, or they're going to succeed in killing the target. But then you find some 3rd or 4th or 5th way that isn't either of those outcomes, where maybe the people who are supposed to kill each other end up falling in love. That we wouldn't expect that, because everything is telling us they want to kill each other. But then you try to find some surprising, unexpected answer at the end of that equation. Yes, I'm very, very worried, I guess you'd say, or cautious about this new development. For one thing, I take a sort of a long look, a long perspective on these things, going back in history. And history and mythology tell us that every time there is a new way to communicate, let's say when writing was invented, you gain something and you lose something. When writing was introduced, there's an Egyptian legend about this, that the creator god came to the pharaoh and he said, I'm going to give you the gift of writing, and this will be great for you people, because they'll be able to remember things, and they can pass down knowledge, and they'll get control over things, and it's going to be a wonderful thing. And the king said, I'm not so sure about this. This will make my people more stupid, because they won't have to remember things, and the paper will remember for them. So it's going to actually make people dumber. And I think that's true at every time. When printing came in, when computers came in, when typewriters came in, it changed things, and some for the good and some kind of not so good. So I'm worried about that. It affects me in a way personally, because just in the last 2 months, my entire career is potentially destroyed. The studios for years have been praying for this AI development with scripts, especially that, wouldn't it be great if we could just type in Tom Cruise, spy movie, dangerous assassin girl, a couple of stunts, just put that in like they do with AI now. You can do that. You can say, give me an outline. And I've tested this on my own stories. I said, give me a historical drama about this character, make it appealing to a studio executive, run it through the Vogler 12 stages of the journey, and give me a beautiful presentation. And it can do that. So my entire career was built on reading scripts and thinking and then writing a report. And they don't need me anymore. They can just put the script in and ask, is this a commercial idea? How would you describe it to somebody in a short form? All the things that I used to do, that's over. Or it could be. It could be if the studios decide, if the people decide they want to use these things, then it could mean the end of my little part of the business, which was the reading the scripts and writing these reports and trying to improve the script. That all apparently can be done by these machines now. So it's very worrying. And then even bigger in a way for the writers themselves. They fear being obsolete. And now there's an interesting question, which is, can the writers use AI themselves? And if they do, say, write me a treatment or write me a script in the style of Tarantino with a certain action, they'll put their recipe in, and they turn that into the studio. Who owns that? The AI companies say, no, we own that because our machine learning has created this. The writer says, no, I own that because I did the input. I asked the questions. So I shaped the answer, the treatment. So it raises very interesting and difficult questions. I don't think these will be easy to solve. And then there's a bigger sort of moral question about it all. Why do you need people? I mean, the machine can make entertainment for the other machines, and who needs us really? So we're in a very, very interesting moment in history, and I am a bit concerned about it. So I hope that we find some ways to keep the human element, to understand that there is a value in the strange way that we do things inside our skulls, that has its own value and maybe cannot be duplicated by the machines. So we'll see. It'll be very interesting. Yeah, well, I would just say that I have a certain confidence in the basic structures of storytelling and these necessities that are going to be there at any level of magnification, whether you're talking about a big streaming series that runs for 5 years or a little TikTok clip that is only on for 30 seconds. My feeling is that the essential parts of storytelling are like this musical instrument, the accordion, that you squeeze it and you expand it, and you can, make music with it, no matter whether it's pushed this way or pulled that way. You get the idea that these things work at all levels of magnification. So it works at this tiny, tiny microscopic level of a little piece, and it works on the big scale as well, because there are certain essential operations that have to be performed at any level. You have to get the audience's attention. You have to make a connection between the viewer and someone or something in the frame.
Yes.
A person or even an object, and we try to make some kind of a bridge between those by having a common wish or desire. Even if you just draw a circle and you put little legs on it and animate it, and the circle is walking along, we relate to that. We connect to that because we walk and we move and we want things. And so even at this very crude, simple level of stick drawings, you do this operation to make this connection, and then you make the audience involved and want to find out what's going to happen. And that can be expanded to 5 years, or it can be condensed to 30 seconds.
Yes.
Even down to one frame, really. Just a simple one frame cartoon panel can communicate this whole operation that I'm talking about. So I have confidence that these things work at all these levels. There's this idea called fractals in geometry.
Yes.
And a fractal design, you've seen pictures of this, I'm sure. Maybe you use a computer to draw a spiral, and then as you zoom in on the pieces of the spiral, it's millions of little spirals, and then you zoom in more and there's more spirals, and so forth, and all the way out to infinity and all the way in. It's consistent. And I think storytelling is like that. I think storytelling works at all those levels of magnification. So I'm confident that that's not going to be upset by new technology. That will remain constant. Yes, actually, I am working on a book with an Italian publisher right now, Dino Audino.
Yes, sure.
Dino Audino Editore, he's a very good publisher of useful books for writers.
Yes.
And he has invited me to Italy a couple of times in the past, and I've done some presentations for Rai TV with his help. So he's going to be publishing a book about character through the eyes of mythology. And we're going to call it something like Writing with the Gods, because I'm going to look at certain aspects of character, which in the ancient world, they sort of symbolized through gods and goddesses. Like there was an idea that one should be excellent in everything. This was sort of a Greek ideal. Everyone should be excellent in everything, in business, in sports, in war, in the way you speak, how you deal with people, in your family. Everything you should try to be excellent. But they represented that through a symbol of a goddess called Arete, who was the goddess of excellence. And they told stories about her and so forth. So for many qualities such as victory and luck and good timing and competition and justice and revenge, all these things were represented by gods and stories, because the Greeks, especially the Romans too, but the Greeks especially, were humanistic. They tried to understand abstract ideas through a human view. So they created stories and characters to contain all their ideas about these qualities. So that's what the book will be about. And I think it'll be useful to writers to just get them thinking about, what is my character's attitude towards justice or towards excellence? Does my character strive for excellence, or do they think that's a silly waste of time? It'll be, I think, useful for
when will be published this book?
I think the idea is to get it ready to go in the fall of 2023. So it may be published in 2024, but it will be coming along soon.
So you are publishing your next book in Italian?
In Italian first, yes. And then we'll see if it goes well in Italy, then maybe we'll bring it back into
yes, of course,
US version. But I have a very special relationship with Italy. I have traveled there many times, and I have learned so much from the Italian filmmakers and artists that I thought it was a good idea to do something purely Italian first and honor that connection, because I've just learned so much from the people I met there. I am really quite obsessed with the history of Rome, especially the classical times when the Pantheon was built and so forth. Yes. And I will talk about that in the book, but I really have an obsession about it. I have made models of the Circus Maximus and the Colosseum, and I have played many hours of video games about building ancient Roman cities, and so it's a great fascination for me.
Okay.
So I look forward to it. That'd be absolutely great. I would love to have a reason to come back and speak to my Italian friends. So yeah, let's work towards that. That would be great. That just to show you, do I have some of my little figures? Yeah, I am always painting little Roman soldiers, I have thousands of these little men that I paint myself, and so I really have this on the brain. Yes, and my best wishes to you and to all the creative community there. It's such a wonderful community with what do you say, dal mi cuore, from my heart, I give you my best wishes.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Federico. Okay, bye-bye.
To you.